Hey, this is Rob Swanson with the Real Estate Mogul Show. Let's get into it. The real life question that every single CEO owner needs to ask themselves: what happens to my business if I can't show up? We're going to get into it. We're going to break it apart, and we're going to talk to you about some real world scenarios and things that you can do to make sure that you're building a business worth owning. Gentlemen, welcome to the studio.
Hey.
Hey, thanks.
What's happening, guys?
You know, Edgar's paws are green. Was he running around in fresh cut grass? Is that the story here?
That is totally the story.
This just totally threw me off. He jumped up next to me.
Yeah.
He looks green. And I was like, it's about that time when we're starting to cut grass.
Yeah. So so the guys here, you guys in the studio know, the listeners may or may not know, I drive a big Ram TRX 750,
fire-breathing horsepower.
702 horsepower, 650 foot-pounds of torque, fire-breathing Hellcat engine truck.
It's pretty doggone fun. Mobile.
Here's where I was going with that. It's not about the truck, but it's got a big, wide center console in between the two front bucket seats. And so this morning, Edgar goes out in the backyard, and we cut the grass yesterday, and so the dew is on the grass this morning.
Yep. It's
wet. There's cut grass everywhere, and he's cruising, and his whole underbelly is green. I had to throw a towel down on that big center console for him to jump up and sit there because he was going to stain my truck.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to derail our topic, but Edgar showed up for a lot of days. I've never seen him green.
Yeah, he is green today.
Nice. Nice.
What else, guys? What's going on?
Hey, doing well. I'm glad to be back in the studio. We had a couple weeks of, after about 45, almost 50 episode run. We had a couple weeks where you were traveling and Mike was out, and things were just happening around the office here, which, that happens.
Yep.
Things are active and students are active. And so we had the live event. It's been good. So it's great to be back in the studio, and I'm excited for this conversation because this is, as Mike mentioned before we started recording here, this is a topic that comes up in everybody's business. And Rob, you've had intimate knowledge of this happening. And, I think we all have experienced a bit of it. And so, this is a great topic for anybody. It's going to be a fun conversation. And I think people are going to get a lot of value out of it, just to start thinking about these things.
Well, here's what I think. I think that it's really easy for people to come up with this idea that they want to build a business because they want to make more money and they want the nicer things in life, right? It's everybody sort of lands there in some way and says, yeah, I want this. Now, what's the old Mike Tyson quote? Everybody has a game plan until they get punched in the face.
That's right. Yeah. That's a great quote.
Yeah, it's a great quote, and it's applicable to life and business in general, right? So everybody has this idea that they want more out of life, but then when life punches them in the face along the way, in some way, and life punches people in the face in a lot of different ways. But once you take that first punch, the question is, was the thing that you thought you wanted a big enough driver to actually continue and work through the pain of the punch and get it? Or does the punch derail the game plan and now you're just either in defense mode, you're back to normal status quo? What is the outcome of that first punch? And we see it, Mike, I think all the time, just because, we coach so many people from all different walks of life. Yep. And, life tends to punch people in the face. I'll share my story in a moment for those that don't know it, but I think we see that all the time, don't we?
So, Rob, one of the things that we were talking about with this topic is I can't think of one student who's gone through one of our longer-term coaching programs, so 6+ months, that hasn't had some type of life event happen that works in a lot of cases really effectively to derail their business and what they've built. And for some people, they get started with us and it happens right away. For other people, it happens multiple months down the road. But this is the honest truth. I can't think of one person that we've worked with. And being in the coach seat, we get to know these things, right? They're not oftentimes shared among the group, and they don't need to be. But I'll get an email, I'll get a phone call, I'll check in with somebody, and they just say, hey, Mike, I'm going to be out for a bit. Here's what happened. And so it's 100%. There's something about the life experience when you make up your mind that says, I'm here and I'm going to move in this direction, something is going to get in your way. I guarantee it. And so the question is, right, we're all the CEOs of our own business. Everybody listening to this, if you have a real estate investing business or you aspire to build one, you are or are going to be the CEO of that company. And you have to ask the question that Rob already brought up. But if you couldn't work for the next 2 weeks, what would happen?
And I'm going to take it.
You have to be asking that question.
Yeah, and I'm going to take it up one. If you couldn't work for the next 2 years, right, what would happen?
Because you're going to tell your story. Most
people think, asking somebody what would happen if you couldn't work for the next 2 weeks, most people might say, well, I'd maybe fall behind on my bills a little bit, or, I'd have to work some overtime, or I'd have to do something to catch up. I'd have to get an extra job. Most people 2 weeks, they're gonna fall behind a little bit, or maybe they've got a little bit of a nest egg and they're like, yeah, 2 weeks, I'd be fine. But what happens if it's 2 years? What if? Let me paint the picture. What if for a scenario, you woke up one day and it was the beginning of a season of your life where you couldn't work in your business for a number of years? Would your business survive? Would your family thrive? Would your finances grow? Or would you end up filing bankruptcy and be destitute and struggle for those years? So I'll tell my story. I woke up one day. Well, I went to the dentist, and I went to the dentist and for a routine, normal, regular cleaning. Go to the dentist, leave. That next week, my jaw starts to hurt and my teeth kind of ache. So I go back and I say, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I never had this until after the cleaning. Did something happen? And they're like, oh, you probably need a night guard. So $500 later, they sell me a night guard. Well, I get this thing and I start wearing it and I'm like, that doesn't help. My jaw aches. Then all of a sudden, a week later, I get a really bad sore throat. I'm like, well, that's weird. I don't get sick very often, but pretty bad sore throat. A week later, I get like this heartburn, and I never have heartburn. We eat healthy, we eat good food. I never have heartburn. I don't have these kind of issues. And, this was late October, and then all of a sudden, okay, it's time to go for Thanksgiving. So we fly out. We had family living out in Hawaii at the time. We go out to Thanksgiving in Hawaii. And while we're out in Thanksgiving, I've got this heartburn. All of a sudden, my stomach starts to hurt. I just don't feel well. And I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And so Thanksgiving wasn't as normal that year for me. I wasn't as active because I didn't feel well the whole time. We come back from Thanksgiving, and I'm like, man, something feels a little bit off. We go 3 weeks later, back from Thanksgiving. We go on a Christmas ski trip with the family up to Breckenridge, and I'm always first one on, last one off the ski lift. Like, let's get up, let's go, and let's pack your lunch. Let's ski hard all day. That trip, I didn't even want to go skiing. I just felt sick, and by the time this is a month, and by the time the ski trip and Christmas and the holidays are over, we get into January, I feel so sick on a daily basis. I'm up in the morning. By 8:30 in the morning, I'm kind of done for the day. And I'm going to circle this long story short. I ended up getting from the dentist a MRSA staph infection that was just working its way from my mouth down my GI tract, and it basically almost killed me. This was back in 2015 and 2016. I got sick at the end of 2014. 2015 and 2016 were really, really rough. But I was essentially relegated, not of my own choice, but of my physical health and condition. I was relegated out of my business for about 3.5 to 4 years. And when I say out of my business, I still occasionally showed up. I was still around, but my brain didn't work. My energy wasn't there. Brain fog. I couldn't do any of the stuff that I had normally done in the past. And literally during that time is when I had acquired FreedomSoft. And during that time, we did, because I couldn't think straight. We did zero marketing of FreedomSoft for the first 3 years that I owned it. None, zero, because I couldn't think of how to market this great product that we now market and grow like crazy. But I couldn't do it. And so something in my life and in my business, the life piece forced me out of the business, and the business piece continued even while I wasn't there. And I'm going to take the story back a couple of years earlier, because I had made a decision that I wanted to put things in place that didn't require me to be there for those things to operate. And so I started to put some simple systems in place that would allow the business to run even if I wasn't there daily driving the business. Now, we didn't grow during that period of time, but we also didn't go bankrupt or lose the business, or nothing disappeared. Our financial state didn't change. It didn't improve as fast as if I would have been attentive to it, but it certainly supported us and provided for us during that period of time. And the long story short, ultimately healed the MRSA staph infection all holistically through a whole bunch of natural remedies. The initial attempt, which wouldn't be necessarily my go-to, but the initial attempt to, I don't know what's wrong with me. And hey, doc, run some tests. And they said, you're the healthiest guy we've seen in a long time. I was in 100-mile ultramarathon shape at the time that I got sick. And they're like, there's nothing wrong with you. But there was. And so ultimately I figured it out on my own through my wife. We healed it. And I'm back to this day. But there's a saying that came out of that. And it's this: a man who has no wealth has 1,000 wishes. A man who has no health has just one. Because during that period of time, when I was sick, all I wanted to do was be not sick. I really didn't care about any of the other stuff. And so this is taking us to the place of the why. Why would you build a business that can support you and your family, whether you can work or not? Well, it's for scenarios exactly like this. I was in the best shape of my life, and the brick wall hit me. Like, it wasn't a stationary brick wall that I had to run into. This brick wall was moving 100 miles an hour straight at me and smacked me, and it took me out. And so the question is, since we know that this happens, right? Life happens to people in varying degrees of like heaviness. Like, how hard does it hit you, right? What are you going to do in your business today? What can you do in your business today to begin setting yourself up to not fall prey and have your life destroyed if something happens? So that's our topic, and that's a little backstory from me.
What's interesting, Rob, we talk about systems all the time, and I think for the most part, people approach systems from the standpoint of, how do I get more done with less effort? How do we become more efficient? How do we make more money? And systems are the topic today. We're just taking a different approach to why you need systems. What if I can't be there for 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years? In your case, what would happen to the business? And I think asking the question, what would happen if I was out for 2 weeks, starts to give you a little bit of the insight that you need as the CEO to say, wait a minute, yeah, this might survive, but this over here, this marketing piece that I do every day, that would come to a complete halt. And it helps you to identify some of the holes in the boat, right?
Yep.
That you can patch up now because, as you can attest, and we can all attest because life happens to all of us, there's no warning.
Right.
You don't get an email that says, oh, by the way, 90 days from now, you have a dentist appointment, and here's what you're about to go through. There's zero warning.
Right.
You get the phone call, you wake up feeling like crap, whatever, right? We all understand this part of the life experience, and it's just the way it is. And so, to as the CEO, to be putting thought into this now, before the storm comes, this is such a relevant conversation.
Well, take the business of wholesaling for a minute.
Yep.
Right. Somebody might look at the business of wholesaling and say, well, if I wasn't there working my business would stop.
That's a lot of, right. And I think we should approach this from, there are individuals that wholesale, one-person teams, operations, and then there are people that have teams, and they both need to be thinking about it, to your point.
And there are people that have systems in place and tools and technology to help their business run, and there are people that don't.
Correct.
And so you can solve a lot of these things. Wholesaling is a transactional business, right? You've got to kill it, drag it home, cook it, and eat it, right? And then you got to go do it again, and again, and again. It's a business of hustle that builds something for the long term. But what if you've built a business, a wholesaling business, and all of a sudden something hits you, a brick wall, a speed bump, a hurdle, and you can't continue the effort that you've been doing? What do? Let's say you're the guy or you're the gal, and what you do masterfully, and you're a one-man show, maybe with a VA, maybe with a little assistant. You're a one-man show, one-woman show. And you take the leads, you talk to the leads, you talk to the sellers, you make the offers, and then you turn around and you find the buyers, you talk to the buyers, you sell the deal, you pitch it, you take that deal across the finish line with the title company, and you get yourself paid. And you're really, really good at that piece of it. Well, there's a lot of other pieces of the business that surround that skill of talking on the phone. There are a lot of other pieces of the business that can be automated, systematized, and structured around just the physical action of talking on the phone. So let's take, for example, let's say that you build your business the right way. You build those systems around your business, and all of a sudden you can't do the work of talking to people on the phone. Well, guess what? There are thousands of other real estate investors that are good at talking to people on the phone. If your business has the structure and the system, the lead generation and marketing systems in place and automated, the lead management, organization, and follow-up systems in place and automated, the automations and the tech and the structure around your business that generates leads, generates buyers. Imagine your ability, you're out of the business. You can't do something. A brick wall hits you and you're out. But you've built some relationships, and you call 1, 2, or 3 guys or gals and you say, hey, I can no longer work this business, but I've got an automated system of marketing over here. I've got an automated system of follow-up to nurture and convert leads on a long timeline. I'd like to set up my automation, my CRM, and my technology to push those leads to you. I'd like you to close them. I want you to do the talking. You talk to the sellers, you talk to the buyers, you get paid, and I just want a 20% cut. So let's do the math on this for a minute. Let's say that your business was humming along. You were a $600,000 a year wholesaler. That's $50,000 a month. And let's say that was happening because you had the systems, the organization, the automation in place where every day you woke up, you logged into your FreedomSoft account, you looked at your leads inbox, and there were leads in there, either new generated leads or leads that had been followed up with that had re-raised their hand and said, you know what, I'm ready to talk now. and there were new leads every single day, every single week, every single month, because the systems were automated. And you were making $50,000 a month, and you could no longer work. This is the scenario we're going to set up. And Mike, I called you and I said, hey man, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I can't work right now. Or XYZ happened in my life. I have to attend to this. I've got this entire system of the business set up. I would like to set up an automation that pushes all of my leads as they raise their hand into your CRM, or I would like to invite you onto the FreedomSoft platform, give you owner access permissions, and I'd like you to work all my leads. And I'd like you to take 80% of the money. I'm going to keep the lead generation going over here. I'm going to keep that working. I'd like to pay back my marketing, and I'd like you to take 80% of the money. So if you're making $50,000 a month, you just went from $50,000 a month with expenses down to expenses covered, and now you're going to take 20% of the 50. That's 10 grand. Now, most people, if they haven't elevated their lifestyle to a $50,000 a month lifestyle, most people recognize that running a business, you start to sock away for the rainy day and you start to build and invest towards your future. So hopefully you've been making that 50 grand and you've been converting the cash into cash flow. You've bought a rental. You bought 2 rentals. You bought 3 rentals. So hopefully the cash has started to create some residual cash flow. But you went from making $50,000 a month doing all of the work to $10,000 a month doing none of the work. Okay? Your business, your life, your financial situation probably isn't growing. It's not significantly improving for whatever period of time you're out, but it also doesn't have to significantly erode. And so, but you had to think about setting up those systems in your business ahead of time. And Mike, I think we talk to people, you talk to people all the time that don't think this way. Is that a fair assessment?
That's 100% a fair assessment. Yeah. They, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, they're thinking systems, but more from the, how do I leverage my time? How do we make more money? But I find it's not common for somebody to ask that question.
Yep.
If I couldn't be here for 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, what would happen? And I think, our playbook is relevant in every conversation. Yep. But if you're a one-person operation and we talk about the playbook, who am I marketing to today? Who am I following up with? Who am I talking to? Who am I making an offer to? So you're doing all the marketing. Great. If you can't be here, who's doing the marketing? Who or what, right?
Yep.
It's personnel and automation and tech.
Yep.
If you can't do the follow-up, who or what is doing the follow-up? Because these things still have to be done. That's how the business works.
Yep.
Right? If you can't talk to sellers, who is? And if you're not making offers, who is?
Yep.
And so it takes this sort of big, sometimes daunting topic maybe, but absolutely relevant. And, and we say, okay, just break it down into these components.
Yep.
And this is where, obviously FreedomSoft comes into play, automation, follow-up, and I love your example where you could absolutely find that person, because when you're doing 50 grand a month, you have a network, the other wholesalers, the other,
yep.
Legitimate, trustworthy investors in town.
Yep.
That would be such an easy conversation for you to have. Hey, here's what just happened. I have to go tend to this.
Yep.
I've known you for a long time. Can you help me fill in? I don't want to shut my business down. I want, create the win-win.
Yep.
And I love that you gave up 80% because you understand that somebody else is now doing all the heavy lifting, but that doesn't mean that you have to shut down. That doesn't mean your business has to come to a grinding halt, because if you walk away from it, let's say financially you could, that to build that business, it may be faster the second time, but you're going to work to get the momentum back in play and to get the pipeline chugging again.
Yep.
Whereas you could just swap somebody out. Do you have a team member? Do you have a business partner? Could you potentially pull in another wholesaler from your network in your example? And so when the company is built to be like you proof or you absent proof, right? I think you understand what I'm trying to say there.
Yep.
You have options now. You don't have to come to a screeching halt.
Well, and I think most people try to solve it the way you just kind of suggested. I need to have a team. So I need to hire people and I need to train them, and or I need a partner. I need a business partner, because if I'm not here, I need a business partner that's going to step up. Well, none of that is necessarily true. You need to think and say, well, what value have I created here? What do I have that is of value, and who is it of value to? Well, your competition is the perfect person to go and cut this deal with, right?
Absolutely.
And here's the thing. It doesn't necessarily even have to be competition. Years ago, I ran the Colorado Property Investors Association, and I would stand on stage every single month in front of a couple hundred investors, and I would say, I want you guys to look around the room. How many of you guys are actively investing in real estate, doing deals, whether you're lending, whether you're buying, whether you're rehabbing, whether you're landlord? How many of you are active real estate investor? And 85, 90% of the hands would go up. And I would then ask the question, how many of you look around and see that there's a lot of competition? And I would frame it that way. How many of you look around and see that there's a lot of competition? And everybody's hand would go back up. And I would then say, what I want you to do is I want you to reframe the lens from which you're seeing these hands. These hands are not your competition. These hands are people that you should buy from, sell to, or partner with on a real estate deal to help you and help them make more money in your career as a real estate investor. Start seeing an abundance of support rather than the scarcity of competition. Mm-hmm. And I would frame that to people, and people's mindsets would change, and I would watch deals start to happen amongst the community. And it was a great thing to lead, and it was a great thing to observe. And so it doesn't have to be your quote unquote competition, but who else in the business is doing well? Who do you know that's doing well? And I would tell people this: don't wait until you can't show up to work or until something distracts you to set this relationship up and have this conversation. Do it today. Start asking yourself, who would be that person or that group of people that I could go to that would keep the systems of my business running and keep a cash flow, a passive cash flow coming to me, even in times of struggle. Set those relationships up today. Put some one-page document together, just an agreement that says, a profit share agreement that says, if I send you leads, here's how we split the money. Here's what we do. And, find those relationships that you can lean in on and put those in place today, and then tell the other people in your life about it. Because let's knock on wood, let's say it's a car accident and you're not present, you're in a coma for a month. Well, nobody's going to know that. Nobody's going to know what to do unless you've set it up ahead of time, put something in writing, and then told people about it. Right?
That's right.
And I don't see anybody do this, and I don't see anybody really have this conversation.
Rob, it's interesting. For those of us with kids, Carrie and I went to a particular family member years ago and said, hey, worst case scenario, we have 3 kids. If something happens to both of us, can we have this conversation about, you guys taking our kids, raising our kids. And so you think about it in the family world.
Right.
And, I'm so glad you brought up this point, because this is, don't wait until that day call happens or that phone call happens, and now you're scrambling. Get something in place ahead of time.
Yep.
That if this happens, it may not, but if it does, Now you know what, everybody knows what to do, and you already have that person selected. You've already had the conversation. Maybe you've already done a little bit of training. Maybe they understand, hey, here's how my business operates. And can you imagine the ability for somebody else to not only, if you meet the right person, and there are a lot of good people. There are, in my opinion, there are a handful of knuckleheads. They move around a lot, but most people are good people. There are clowns in every industry, real estate included. But there are some great people in the business. Rob, I've seen you and your network do this multiple times. So-and-so has a need. The group of investors rallies. What's the need? Let's go take care of it. This would be one of those types of scenarios. There would be people, assuming that you do business with integrity as well, and you're truly in this for the win-win, that would not only be willing to help out in a scenario like this, they would love to help you out, and it would create the win-win.
Yep.
And I just want to make this comment. I've come across, not very many, I've come across a few investors over the years who have this me versus you, me versus the world mentality. They want to operate on an island. They would have a really hard time finding somebody to help in a scenario like this, when the better way to just operate your business in life is, how do I create win-wins for this network? Because you never know when you need to call upon that network.
Right.
And it's the network that'll help you. I was going to say bail you out, but not necessarily, maybe. But it's the network that'll step up and help when you're in your greatest time of need.
Yep.
So you better be building the network now, and you should also be a business operator that somebody else could approach and say, hey, Mike, I trust you. Would you operate this? This is what just happened to me and my family. Can you help me step in here?
Yep.
That's how you should run your business as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the thing, it's kind of like raising capital, right? A lot of times people have this mental block when it comes to raising capital, thinking that what they're asking the person with the money for is a favor, right? And it's quite the opposite, right? You're actually offering the person with the money an opportunity that they wouldn't have without your skill set as a value investor, as a wholesaler, as a deal finder, right? And so you're offering a private lender the opportunity to participate in something that's secured by real estate, covered by insurance, cash flows monthly, right? A good opportunity. It's the same thing here. People could have this misconception that if I approach somebody and set this type of a scenario up, that I'm asking them for a favor. And it's quite the opposite. If you've set your business up with the systems, the processes in place that has consistent lead flow, has consistent deal flow, and the ability to either push those opportunities right into someone else's CRM, right into someone else's business automatically, you're actually increasing their business and their cash flow and their paydays and their profit overnight. And so very few people, if framed correctly, are going to say no to that, because you're not asking them to do any extra work. You're asking them to do the extra work that they are already trying to do. They're trying to get more leads. They're trying to get more deals. They're trying to close, get more deals across the finish line and close more opportunities. They're trying to find that, and you're saying, hey, I'll give this to you. And what you have is you keep the residual cash flow, the smaller cut of it, but a residual cash flow, so that you get paid for setting up, building, and keeping the automated pieces of that business running, whether you're working or not. And we're talking a lot here about a very transactional business, the business of wholesaling. But this is how you can keep the business of wholesaling paying you whether you're working or not. Now, Mike, let's talk a little bit about the systems or the tech that it takes. Like, where would somebody focus? Where would they shore up their business in order to be able to put that in place and know that their business can continue whether they're working or not?
Yeah, so there are some additional, I would say, dispositions components outside of the playbook, but I would start with marketing. Where are the leads coming from, and what marketing efforts are generating the leads, and how do we get these automated, right? It's either, we've talked multiple times here on the podcast about the automated direct mail system in FreedomSoft, which you can literally set it up one time and it would just go. So if I had to be out for 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever, unless somebody shuts it off, it'll go, right? Which is a beautiful thing, all right? We were teaching our coaching students last week about a method, again, using FreedomSoft and sending out a contract via direct mail that with very little setup, you could teach anybody to do, somebody on your team or somebody, halfway across the world, that you would hire an hour a week, an hour a day, 2 hours a day, and they could go in and very easily replicate this system and keep marketing efforts moving. So I think number one is, what is generating the deal flow now in the inbound leads, right? And in your business, you've got to ask the question, okay, if I wasn't here to do it, how can I automate it? Yep. Technology and personnel. Number two, what's happening with the leads when they come in? Again, if you're a one-person operation, when those leads come in, you're the one following up. So you're going to need something else in play here. You're going to have to drive, like you said in FreedomSoft, you could either, somebody else could be invited into your account who could now see them and access them and call back. Or you could set up an automation that when a new lead comes inbound, you set up a notification and send that externally to somebody else. Both methods can work.
Yep.
In a scenario like this. But again, you have to ask the question. Number two in the playbook is, well, number two is who am I following up with? I kind of jumped ahead to number three, but who is going to be handling the inbound leads? Because right now that's you. If not you, who can do it?
That's
right. Bring in somebody else that's skilled who can handle that for you.
Yep.
Then we talk about in the playbook making offers.
Yep.
If not you, who and how. And the thing about it, Rob, is this doesn't need to be, we're not talking IBM level systems here.
Right.
We're talking just some simple, here's what I do. Yep. If I couldn't, who or what's going to handle it?
Yeah.
Right.
So
this isn't a 12-month process to automate your business.
100%. Let's break it down so simple that I can use like kindergarten level words. Let's break that, what you just said. So and you broke into the playbook. It's the capture, it's the stir, and it's the push. You got to capture new leads on a regular basis. So you need automation in place that refreshes your marketing lists, takes those refreshed prospects, pushes them into your automated marketing buckets, and automatically runs marketing to them. When people respond to that marketing, the system automatically captures those inbound leads, captures a voicemail, captures a hang-up call, captures the opportunity, and then pushes that lead into the sphere or the world of somebody skilled at getting on the phone, right? So the capture, the stir, and the push. Because the stir might happen immediately. That lead is captured, it's immediately stirred, and it's pushed right out to a live answer, right out to a real-time follow-up, right out to whoever is going to get on that phone. But sometimes the push happens, and then it goes back, and the stir now has to follow up. The stir has to do its thing. Because how many deals have we closed? Here's the stat, and I've quoted this stat before. I talk about this stat all the time. But 2/3 of the deals you close, 2/3 of the deals you close will not close because of the first contact. They'll close because of the follow-up. So the stir. You've got to have follow-up in place. And if you have automated list refresh, automated marketing, automated lead capture, automated follow-up across email, text message, task management, and automated push to push anybody at any moment that raises their hand into the into the sphere of the person who's going to get on the phone and close that deal, you're going to win at a significantly higher level than the guy or gal who doesn't have that simple system set up. Now, people talk about automation, and they talk about follow-up, and they talk about lead management, and they talk about all of these things. And, one of the flags that we'll plant our flag at the top of the hill on all day long at FreedomSoft is organize before you automate. And if you start organized, and if you set your structure up organized, then the automations of capture, stir, and push are really simple, because you have organized buckets from which to work around. And it's easy to systematize your business. And if you can't work your business, push it into the hands of somebody who can. Let them close, pay back your marketing, let them close the deals, take 80% of the net profit, you keep 20% of the net profit, and you're good. So think about how your business can be systematized in that way. And that's how you build a business that supports you, your family, no matter what happens. Even if it's a transactional, an active hustle business like wholesaling.
Yep. And, the organize first is key to this, because don't hand somebody a bowl of spaghetti and say, hey, I got to duck out. Can you try and untangle this?
Right.
You're not going to get any result. And all you're going to do is blow up their schedule.
That's right.
Now, if they say yes, they're going to feel obligated to try and help you, and they're just going to be stressed out. Can you imagine if you just handed over hey, let me explain this really quick, and ideally ahead of time, this is what I've built, this is how it operates. In a worst case scenario, if I call you, here's what I'm going to do.
Yep.
Either I'll get you access, or I'll set up a quick little notification that'll push these your way. But here's the deal. They're going to come in organized, right? I'm not trying to, create this untangling mess for you to, this web for you to go sort through.
Yep.
It's very, it's laid out. It's organized when they come in. Here's what we're doing. And that would be, talk about the win-win. For another investor that's closing deals to just have access to another 10, 12, 15, 20, 30 leads a month,
yep,
whatever you're doing, would be, and obviously you're going to pick somebody that has some bandwidth and some know-how. You're not going to, go down to your real estate club and say, oh, you're brand new? Yeah, hey, let me set something up with you, just in case, right? You're going to go to somebody else that's a peer
that's right,
in the business and create the win-win. And you never know. You may have to return the favor at some point. So, I just one other thing, Rob, I wanted to just reemphasize the organize before you automate.
Yep.
If you just go automate, you have automated chaos.
Yep.
That's what you end up with, right? So organize first. The second thing is, we've all heard this saying for a long, long time, the fortune's in the follow-up. You just put a number to it, right? How important is follow-up? Well, you can either make 2/3 more money or 2/3 less. That's how important follow-up is.
Yep.
So to be organized here with a system that does it on your behalf, you should have that in place now anyway.
Yep.
Right? Because it's 2/3. So either you're going to walk down the sidewalk and walk past 2/3 of the paydays.
Yep.
Or you can be dialed and follow up and pick those up. That's how big of a deal it is. It's not just that a little bit more fortune's in the follow-up, it's that the majority of it is in the follow-up.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, I think we see it all the time. We see it with newer investors in our coaching programs that they don't understand the why, other than I want to make some more money. That they're not fully committed to the why of building the systems of their business and getting those systems firing. And then on the other side, on some of our higher level programs where we have experienced investors that we work with, they understand the why of building systems. They understand the why of building a team. They understand the why of growing their business while protecting their margins. But they don't always have the approach or the thought process of, okay, how can I do this effectively? And so, you've got two ends of the spectrum, the newer investor who's not thinking that way yet, and then they potentially end up with a business that is just off the ground, just making money, and then as quick as it started, it's a flash in the pan and it dies on the vine, right? And it doesn't have to be that way. And I can remember years ago, when I didn't understand this in my younger entrepreneurial career. I have had several businesses along the way that I've either just evolved out of or transitioned out of and moved to something else. And I didn't recognize that what I was leaving had systematic and structural value. And I just kind of let it die. And what I could have, should have, wish I would have done, I could have sold it. I could have partnered with somebody. I could have done a profit share with another similar business and pushed the opportunities to them. And I could have kept certain aspects of what I had alive, which would have been really good. But I didn't think about it that way in my early entrepreneurial ventures. Today I do. Today I think about what is the value I'm creating, and it's not how much money am I making. It's not the gross top line revenue or the net revenue. It's not the amount of money I'm making. It's what is the enterprise value of the systems that I'm creating? Could somebody else plug into this system and add revenue to their business? And for that plugging in, could I keep a cash flow cut? Could I take a smaller percentage of that for doing none of the work? And the answer is almost unequivocally in every situation, yes. People just need to start thinking about it in that way, and they will set themselves and their families up to not get blindsided by life and that sucker punch, and your plan doesn't necessarily have to change. The business can continue to go. The business can continue to grow. Your income could go up in those scenarios. As long as you put in the capture, the stir, and the push pieces of the system in place, your business can win.
I love it. And can I just say one other thing? I mean, this is totally off topic.
Do it.
You're looking pretty tan, Rob. You went to Costa Rica. And this is part of having a business. This is a so just.
I didn't
off
see
the
that
track.
coming.
Nope. This is it. But this speaks to the idea of you could have a business that's running and you can go run something else. How was Costa Rica?
Costa Rica was great. It's the hot time of year, so Costa Rica was a little hot.
Like, what's hot temperature? So because I just don't know the climate.
It was 100 degrees.
Okay,
but it's down on the equator.
Yeah.
And the sun is just brutal.
Dang,
like, it's hot.
And it's humid, right? I'm assuming.
Well, it's humid up in the rainforest. It's humid. Yeah, it's humid down on the beach too. But it's very dry. It's weird.
Interesting.
The topography, the plants are dry this time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean dry for the equator, right?
Right.
It's dusty. It's dry. It's like it hasn't rained since November.
Wow, interesting.
So while we were there, we're just at the end of the dry season. We're about to get the first rains, and like that heat, that stifling heat is about to break because the rains are about to come and move into the rainy season, which will then take you through the end of summer and into fall, where it's just beautiful. It's green and it's vibrant and it's just different. But it was hot. But the surfing was good.
What's your favorite month to go there, weather-wise?
I mean, it's funny. We've gone all months, like different times of year. We've been there 6 times.
Okay.
I would say the fall. I would say August, September.
Okay.
We like a lot. Yeah. We have gone over like the holidays, Christmas time ish, or like right after the new year. And that was pretty nice. It was earlier dry season. This is later dry season. So we're 3 months later, and it's drier, it's hotter. So the holidays are nice. That fall season is pretty nice. But, to be honest with you, if I've got a ticket going to Costa Rica, I'm probably in.
Yep, got it.
I love it.
Yep.
So good.
All right, guys, I think that's a wrap for this one. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.
See ya.